session. Mainly, like in the copy document, there's a summary. The main problem is that starting with Lucid, we started to have not only the DRM stack from a different kernel version, but also like there's one or two more drivers. I think SRC and a network driver and a multi-touch driver, which came from a more recent kernel version than the rest of the kernel. So if we now do stable updates, we always catch changes that should go in, because maybe that update only gets into a more recent kernel and not into the 32 kernel, or do we accept changes that maybe destroy something because they are applied to 32 twice, because we don't really realize that the hunk applies, but it's already there because we have a newer kernel. So basically, there is one wiki page where we document what's there. Oh, it's the ThinkPad API, I forgot to use it, which came from 34.
Wow. I didn't know that page existed.
That's probably a good thing to like have it documented here. So it does, yeah. So we try to like at least add anything that is not in the same driver, in the same release, whatever, we document here. The question, there was one thing, a few bullet points that I wrote up, which maybe things to think about, is what's the actual expectation about those drivers? Should we really track for changes in the next driver, release kernel, or do we wait for people to really submit things to us and say this is broken? And
I mean, the question here is keeping track of why we need these drivers, so that we can make informed decisions about those points.
Sometimes, well, it's various reasons why we have.
Sure, but I think we need to document that somewhere so we can keep reviewing that as we go along. So the ThinkPad ACPI driver, that was kept.
That was taken because only that driver adds support for hardware mixer for these ThinkPad volume control.
And we need to do some magic to prevent a symbol conflict with something else, I think.
Well, the conflict was that alpha has a dependency on alpha.
Yeah.
So if you have LVM and alpha backports modules, you need that driver in there as well.
So I think if we at least document those reasons, then.
But I don't think this is the place to document them per se, because we already document the reasons for deviance in our kernel from a delta point of view during the delta review.
So some things came in late. I mean, so it's not documented in the delta review,
but it should
the next one.
Well, yeah. There should be an up-to-date delta review, even if we're not currently doing that, because this only tells us why we're carrying 4 of the drivers, because they happen to be from the wrong version. But the information you want and care about surely applies to all drivers, whether they're deviant or not, deviant inversion.
I think that the cost here is a lot higher. So I think that's why I'm more keen to do that. And if that works in UDS, then that's good. But if we do it, it's a little more.
I don't think we're going to suddenly, we're never going to change one of these sort of different versions by SOU. So once it's released, it's kind of set in stone.
Sort of, that's one of the points I take here. Sometimes we have taken things from like 2634 RC7. Then the question is, wouldn't it then make at least sense to say, okay, even if we have released, we take care that SRU brings it to a release version, so we know it's
I think we should follow those drivers down the stable branch that makes sense for them, is the broad brush term. So as you say, if we're at 2635, we have 36 RC7, it should follow that version into 36 RC8, 36, 36.1, 36.2. It should go that way with it.
Okay.
And we should at least be taking security updates and stable updates in that direction, which I think, as you say, I think means we have to take the whole thing if we're in an RC as we go forward, because it's just mad otherwise. How do you do stable support for a 2637 36 RC7 version of something when stable maintenance is the only stables you're getting at 36.4? It just has no meaning to not.
Well, you sort of like need to look into that document and say, okay, when I'm doing stable updates, actually I have to look into the same kernel version as I'm doing the stable updates, but also like 2 versions ahead, because some drivers came from that, and make sure there aren't any changes to those drivers.
Yeah.
And none of that is automated right now, except the one case of the DRM stuff.
Yeah. That's sort of, I have some notes later for that case, because it involves also like an upstream route.
So, I think we should, and one of the things I think we should end up writing is a set of, like we have for config options, a set of vague rules in English of what the rules are. So I think one of them is if it's an RC version, it mustn't end up being an RC version, but we should roll it forward at least to the next major version, even if we stop there with it.
Yes.
So I'll add a rules bit further down and randomly try and quote these together as we go through, and then at the end I think we should review it.
Okay. So how long is sort of also answered, like we at least make updates and while the kernel from which the driver came from has stable updates.
Yeah, well, but your rule isn't applying to DRM.
No, well, yes it does, because that has an upstream tree that does.
But you've moved on to .34.
No,
I'm
doing updates to 33.
He's talking about how long we maintain it, basically.
Yeah.
And it should be the same as stable.
He has taken on maintenance of DRM 33 essentially. So he's doing stable maintenance only for 33 in the DRM directory.
Okay.
But he's essentially
So basically you have ongoing support, upstream support.
So essentially we've taken on support for it because we needed supported long term. But we have an upstream, it just happens to be us. Now I think we should do stable support for them, and I think we should do security support for them in the same way as we do anything else in that release.
Yeah, I mean, security thing would be
more
automatic because you have a security problem, you look at the driver.
Right. So I'm not saying that we have to do anything, but I think we should be applying the same essential plan.
Yeah.
And absolutely sometimes put something less important than DRM. 35 is going to stop being supported, and it's not going to. It doesn't go further, and we're not going to take it on, so it's going to just stop being maintained.
Right.
So we should follow it to the tip.
Exactly. Yeah. So general proof is as long as there's an upstream stable kernel for that, it gets followed. So I think that was the second one. We will add some rules about like getting to a release version of.
I'm right off the bottom of your
okay. The third one is also sort of answered. Then there was it's more an idea. Would it make sense to like add some commit hook rules to give you some warning if you touch that driver to say, like, consider or are you sure you want to change that or make that change? Do you know that it is a different version of the normal kernel? Like if you could like have some records you check against and it's touching those parts, that it gives some warning not to forget that it's different. It's just
I'm not quite sure when that would have meaning to you, because you would already have touched it by the time you knew that you were touching it. So it wouldn't be telling you anything new.
well, it's probably before you push it.
Commit hook.
But what is that telling you?
So
If I've already
that if you
why
like
are you telling
some,
me I don't want to modify a driver that I've just modified? Because that's the only time you'd ever mention it. Or did I
It's sort
miss
of
it?
like a safety question after you committed it, but you haven't pushed it yet, so you can still say.
It's a pre-commit hook.
Or
If you really want to enforce it, then
So are you trying, is the issue that in the DRM case, that if we're looking at the .32 stable release and there are DRM patches in the .32 tree, that you're warned that you shouldn't be applying those, you should be looking at the DRM3 tree instead for patches? I mean, is that what you're trying to accomplish here? Or?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, the thinking was more with the other things because the DRM stuff is more in our mind than like the SFC driver.
I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
But you're right. It applies to any odd bit that we have
Yeah.
grabbed.
how does the hook know where you got the patch from?
Well, that's it. I don't know.
I don't think that's a commit hook thing.
Okay.
I think that's probably a process thing, and it may be an automated thing that I think you want to know that at the time when you have a bucket of patches. When you take a bucket of patches,
Yeah.
like in Git AM form in a directory, and you're
Yes.
about to apply
Yeah.
it, you want to run something over that, and it says, warning, this is an SFC thing, and in this tree, that should come from 34. So you can look at that
Yeah.
report and go,
Okay, yeah.
I know that
Yes.
because I put it in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you can go, crap, I didn't know that, and I didn't put it in there. I'm going to actually have to think about that patch before I.
Okay, yeah, that was basically the idea that you, at the moment there's no way to prevent you of touching those things. You could accidentally change. I mean, I had like sometimes patches apply even if it's not
So
right
the-
for them to apply.
So the information about what
That should
these
be in the
pieces
tree
are and where they came
somewhere.
from, yes, should be in the tree itself. And
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
it must be in the tree. For
Yeah.
this, for the,
And that
I
could
just
also
put it-
contain the sort of like what Jeremy said, some sort of justification or like a little history to say
yes.
that it was it's
Yes.
in because.
As well as a tool in the Debian rules scripts directory that will dump that in human readable form and tell you, oh, this DRM.
so yeah, I've added an action to say stable tool to detect a directory of patches touching a Debian piece.
Mhm.
And I think you're right, document within the source tree.
Yes. The deviance.txt file.
Source
Yeah.
tree, Debian/deviant versions.
Which could pretty easily contain directory path globs or.
Yeah, it's going to be globs and text or something.
Right.
We need to think about that, but I'll just put that down as something to remind us then.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
can just close the chat window instead. Just close the chat window.
See, there's an X in the top right of the chat window. If you get rid of that, it'll give us more lines.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Now, what's the expectation of our plan for support of these drivers as long as upstream support occurs? Not if this, I'd say you cut it off at the stable support point, which is whatever it is. X
Well,
number of
I
months.
think that's what's meant. If you have,
Okay.
if
Yeah.
like the kernel from which the driver came ends the stable support. As
Then
that
we
stable
end the
support
deviants
ends.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just follow it to the tip of the stable until that stops.
So if it's 34 in 32, when 34 has ended, or as it has now already, then we stop.
No, my argument is you stop it at the end of the window for the base kernel that you've added it.
So for Maverick, if the
It's
support
Maverick.
is 18 months, then you,
Stable release, stable updates stop after 18 months.
even for the DV
Even for
parts.
the deviant parts.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I think, sorry, that's a given. We don't change the tree anymore after 18 months.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, the way that's worded, if you took a
Won't
later.
change it anymore. We're never going to upload it.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
It's more the other way around for LTS release.
LTS.
We
Yeah.
probably still change it, but it won't be an automatic change.
Well, there's also
Sort
the
of following something.
4 month, we
Okay.
follow stable
For 4
updates for
months.
4 months.
Well, not in LTSs, we take them all forever.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, in this case, would we, for any reason, extend that period for the deviant parts?
I think if it's not an LTS, they stop at 4 months, full stop. And that applies to everything, which regardless of source, and that's always going to be before the later ones go off. So there's never let's move. If it's an LTS, I think we follow them until they're no longer supported full stop. Which if it's 32, 35 will go off support before 32 goes off support,
Right.
and before it's off support as an LTS. But we make a decision on a subsystem by subsystem basis whether it is worth us maintaining it further.
But there is the case where somebody upstream may decide that a particular release is worth maintaining for a longer period of time. And so, do we continue to track those as well?
We should, up until the time we would normally stop for that release. So it's either 4 months or forever.
Yeah.
All right.
So the question here was if the upstream release is no longer supported, I think on a case-by-case basis we either stop when that stops, or if we think it's worth further maintenance, we have to manage it ourselves. Because DRM, for example, we've taken the opposite choice. We've decided that graphics is important enough, we're going to continue supporting it, presumably for 3 years, and we'll probably stop when desktop goes off support. Though I doubt that's documented, we should make sure it is. So is that we stop when the upstream stable stops as the general case, unless there are, with exceptions on a case-by-case basis? Well, the next question was, do we want a warning? We've already said yes to them. We do want a warning. I mean, the key thing is we don't currently have it well documented. And we have it slightly more well documented than I realised. I think there's 2 things missing there. I think you're right. The reason we made this choice probably could well be documenting there.
And if it's in the tree, it's simpler to find maybe.
Possibly, but we certainly need in the tree the file names.
While we're adding things to the tree, no, I think it would be extremely valuable to have the end of life, end of support dates in the tree for kernels documented in the kernel tree.
That didn't help us finding until they got right into it.
Well, it could also be a part of this information about the deviants.
Are you going to be happy when you put unsupported on your tree?
It's just at least that we know.
There is an official place for that information. There is a wiki page maintained by the release team that has that information. It is the definitive position. Anything that's not that position could never be definitive.
Okay.
So
maybe
those are
the
the
deviations in that.
on the wiki page.
Well,
it's not easy. The reason we want the deviations on a version by version basis in the tree is because any tool that's going to enforce them needs them when it's got the tree.
Right. I mean, one thing that's not on the release page, as far as I think, is for the topic branches.
There is a page. Yeah, there is. The page that I've seen that I can never find, to be fair. So I don't know how anybody else can find it, because I can never find anything in the wiki page. That page does have them all, and it has, like for the LTS, the ARM branches that are supported are only supported for 18 months.
Okay.
They're not supported for the full 5.
So there's an actual page?
Yeah, it's an actual page with, for each release, I think it's per release page, but there's like a table. Yeah, I got shown it by the release manager, not this release, but the previous release, and I've not found it since, but I know it exists because I've seen it.
I think it's also got the names of who's responsible for each of those branches.
And who signed up for it, and why it's signed up for, and all sorts of things.
Here, it's right here. It's wiki.ubuntu.com/releases with a capital R.
So that's, I think, the generic one.
Could you get it on the screen so we can see if it's the right one? There's one that's got like...
actually, my doesn't work. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that one's the one which has only got basic dates for desktop and an internal server. Hit Control R more. It's bound to fix it.
Well, that's a good sign that it's slow.
Yeah.
It's only 50 answers.
We are rebooted.
But there's definitely a page that only has sort of all the releases with desktop and server.
Yeah.
But there's another one which has a whole sequence.
Yeah. I think that's the one with desktop.
Yeah, that's just the thin one. There's a thick one. Try clicking on the
There was a
name.
link up ahead to time-based, well, no, that was...
Click on Maverick itself.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll have to ask. I'll take an action to ask Kate where it's gone.
Email address.
Yeah, I'll send it out. I'll get it documented.
Yeah.
Ask Kate where the support data is. Because I have seen it and it has like 20 lines for each release with every single sub part of it saying how long they're stored.
Okay, well, then that doesn't really need to be the truth. It's probably
somewhere.
Okay, so in the final part, I'd like
that's
to
it.
document and maybe to discuss
Could you
this my idea
Give us the
of
full URL.
how the workflow is started.
Yeah. Really, the ISA channel.
Oh, sounds like we might have found it. Or the equivalent for Lucid, which presumably exists for all of them. Which is, he's going to put it in the Gobby doc, so you're ready to click on it and say. Or, where is it gone?
we're still, we have
I don't know where I should put it.
Anywhere. Shove it near the other,
Any old place.
just above rule. Yeah, there you go. So see if there's a map, open that one and then after you've opened that one, see if there's a Maverick one. Because that has the sort of thing we're talking about.
Yes, there is.
Right, so that's the right one.
Yeah.
So it
I've
says
seen that.
which architectures, how long, who signed it off,
Okay.
blah blah blah.
Oh,
That
look
was
at that.
the thing we were looking for. We didn't know either.
Interestingly, it doesn't
I
have
just-
a date,
Yeah, it doesn't have a date, it only has a time period.
so you have to calculate it yourself. That's actually a bit stupid. Okay, I'll get rid of that action because I've already done it.
Do an action to request change from invented.
There's a really good Wikipedia page that actually lists the dates,
Yeah,
but
the
it's
Wikipedia
not
page is-
definitive.
It is much better, to be honest, but let's not talk about that. So anyway, that's the page I was thinking about. Did that, I've forgotten whether that covers everything. Oh, okay, so we want to now look at the rules I've written.
Well,
Well, let's talk about DRM
the
33.
DM33.
Oh, was there something else, right, Kate?
Yeah, so basically, what we currently do is like we get patches from sent to the kernel team mailing list for DRM. We then apply to the kernel.org tree, which I have a link there. Some come from us. Some Ben Hutchins is also sending patches in when they have some in for Debian. One thing that I think makes probably sense to automatically pick is I saw that sometimes patches get applied to 32 and the current like supported release. And I guess if it's applied to both of those, then there's a high chance that it's also applicable for 33 in the middle. So we probably could then automatically pick those and apply those. One thing to improve certainly is I think I should start to send out mails whenever I queue something up and sort of send it to the CC and the patch submitter to say that has been queued to that tree, and if you think it's wrong, then please reply.
What if we could send that to Stable as well?
We could,
We might need to ask them, but
yeah,
I would ask.
one of the
maybe we see
because
Next week.
well, I think
yeah.
the process should look as much like, in terms of what mails come out, as the upstream process for 32 and 33.
Probably you can put an action for me to say, speak with Greg next week to ask whether it's alright to send thing to Stable review, which is not his stuff.
Is Stable a list management system?
There's a Stable review, upstream Stable review, something like that, which gets mails whenever Greg starts a review of something. There's also a list where he sends stuff to when he queues it.
Yeah. I think Stable review, we should be trying to use the same people.
Yeah,
I can't see why you should object, I'm sure we will.
yeah.
We should ask.
At least try. Then at some point, I currently have no specific thing to say, which is the point when I start to like, now I release it. Should it be sort of like every 2 weeks if there is something, or should I say if it's like
When you put a number on it, is what you're asking.
yeah.
I think you should be doing it roughly in sync with the upstream ones, because they must come out on a significant portion of that tree is coming from Greg's tree, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of got
Well,
two numbers coming in.
There could be a delay because when Greg has released, then maybe plus 2 days or whatever to
Right. So
in the other
mentally
thing.
it should be like Greg's plus a week.
Yeah. Which is not really deterministic, but deterministic.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so yeah, it would be fine with me as well. And then, I mean, what I should add as well is like a release note, maybe to LKML as well, to
Yeah.
like make it more visible that the tree is there at all. And then basically after that, if it's a release, we do the cycle with SLU to use it. Okay. And I think at that point, when I have more review, or like send out mails for review beforehand, like it has already some eyeballing that it makes sense, and then you can treat it even more exactly like the other stable upstream things.
Yeah, I think we should try and
No,
get
it's
that tree from a stable people's consumption point of view, that you may be involved in the process of generating it, but you shouldn't have to think about it any differently from any of the other trees. In fact, in an ideal world, you shouldn't be thinking about, you shouldn't take 2632.15 from the 2632.y tree, you should get it from here. So you should have a single upstream
I'm not
stable
gonna,
tree
I am no longer going to filter out the DRM updates to 33. I'm going to rely
on this tree.
on this tree.
Right, I think that's the correct way for the stable team to look.
Well, actually,
You
for
have to
all
filter
updates
them
on
out. Well,
No, you should take them all from that tree, because they're all in
yeah.
that
I'm
tree.
going to take, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm going to take all the updates.
Agreed, yeah.
Because there should be a, I mean, from his point of view, when both numbers are implemented, you should take all of them.
Yeah. And I have to move forward whenever Greg moves forward.
Right.
With this.
Yes, but that's not my problem. When you
No.
release
If your stable management head on, you should just use that tree as your upstream. You may then end up being the one who makes that with a separate hat on,
yeah,
but separate to that, you should be consuming from that tree as if it's a single tree.
schizophrenia is not a problem.
Actually, buy two hats.
By two hats.
Well, actually, I try to keep that anything.
Right, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the point being is that from a stable
So
team's
for
point of view,
Steve, nothing changes, just the URL from which he takes the
Right.
stable updates.
Right.
Okay. So
Well, you
then
gotta
we
find
can
the
go
problem,
to
it's easier to
what
find.
you noted down. So, updates, that's the answer to the question above. Rules. Yeah.
I think it's quite simple. You just
Yeah.
follow it to the tip. And I think we've actually done a lot more work on this than I think any of us realised, in the sense that it's actually what we've documented, which is a huge step. I didn't know it was documented at all.
Yeah.
So
We
it's
started sort of with Lucid, or actually in between, like in the end with Maverick, added some stuff, or we came to like, I don't know what has changed there because I haven't been following the Maverick thing. We need to write it down somewhere.
No, it's excellent. I mean, that's exactly what we need. If short of information like that,
So it looks good to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's probably a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered everything, I assume.
We have no remote participation, so we're done.
Session closed.
Yes.
That was good. That was fine.